Assalamu alaikum. It's Muhammad Muslihuddin. Today I will discuss on effect of metformin on vitamin B12. Okay, so let's start. ربي زدني علما ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. So according to research, we have found that the metformin can decrease the vitamin B12 level in your blood. So today we will try to discuss how does the metformin decrease this vitamin B12 level. Okay, so according to research, if the metformin doses is equal or more than the 1500 milligram per day, then it can significantly decrease your vitamin B12 level in your blood or serum. Okay, so according to our result, that we have found that metformin can decrease the vitamin B12 level in 22% of patients, those who have been taking metformin for the diabetes mellitus or PCOS syndrome, etc. Okay, so today we will try to explain the underlying pathophysiology, but before that I want to discuss briefly about the mode of action of metformin. So all of us know about that, but I will try to discuss it briefly. Okay, so we know that the metformin can act in multiple pathway. So the important pathway is the metformin stimulates or activate the AMPK, that means adenosine monophosphate activated kinase enzyme, and the AMPK enzyme inhibits the gluconeogenesis. So if the AMPK inhibits the gluconeogenesis, so we can easily predict that the blood glucose level will be decreased. So that means there is happening AMPK decrease the blood glucose level and metformin stimulate the AMPK. That means through this metformin the function of AMPK will be enhanced. That's why gluconeogenesis process will be decreased more and more. That's why blood glucose level will be fall down. Okay, so by this pathway metformin mainly controls our blood glucose level. Moreover, there are some other pathways that has been detected through the research, and we know that these pathways are the metformin can also increases the insulin sensitivity. That's why insulin can act more actively and more faster. So moreover, the metformin increases the fatty acid oxidations and it decreases the intestinal glucose absorption. Let's start. So before that, I have to discuss briefly about that how does the vitamin B12 absorbs in our ileum, terminal part of ileum. So we know that the vitamin B12 is mainly found in animal source. So the vitamin B12, this vitamin is bound with protein diet. Okay, mainly. So here the vitamin B12 is indicated as CVL, that means cobalamin. So you can see here that the cobalamin is bound with the protein content. So whenever this protein bound with cobalamin is reached into your stomach, the hydrochloric acid and pepsin secreted from your gastric glands, they will digest and detach the cobalamin from the protein. So here you can see the cobalamin is detached from the protein. Now cobalamin is free, but the cobalamin cannot survive for a long time in this highly acidic atmosphere. That's why the R binder protein, a glycoprotein, this R binder protein try to protect the cobalamin. So R binder protein will bind with this cobalamin. Here you can see the cobalamin is bound with R binder. So this complex, this cobalamin and R binder complex now reaches into the duodenum. Here we know that in duodenum pancreatic juice releases. So the pancreatic enzyme will digest this R binder protein. We know that the pancreas releases the proteolytic enzyme. That's why the cobalamin now again free in the duodenum. So the cobalamin is a VIP person, and this knowledge try to travel through a Mercedes or BMW car. The BMW or Mercedes car for this cobalamin vitamins is intrinsic factor of Kessel, which is secreted from the gastric gland. We know that the parietal cell produces this intrinsic factor. So here the intrinsic factor will combined with this cobalamin. So here you can see this is the intrinsic factor and cobalamin complex. So this complex will travel down towards your ileum, terminal part of ileum. So here you can see that there is an enterocyte. So this enterocyte is located on the terminal part of ileum. Now intrinsic factor and cobalamin complex is your lumen in ileum. Okay, so in the enterocyte of terminal part of ileum, there are receptor for this complex, this cobalamin and intrinsic factor complex. Okay, now we will show you that receptor. Okay, so this large cell is a enterocyte, you can see here, and this is a receptor which will facilitates the absorption of vitamin B12, and this receptor is known as Cubeline receptor. So the Cubeline receptor is located on the luminal side of the enterocytes of ileum. Remember, this Cubeline receptor is only located on the enterocytes of terminal ileum. That's why the vitamin B12 is mainly absorbed at terminal ileum. Okay, so vitamin B12 and intrinsic factor complex is now closer to this receptor. So this receptor will bind with this complex. But very interesting things that for this bondage between this complex and this Cubeline receptor, one ion is mandatory, and that ion is the calcium ions. Okay, so calcium ion facilitates this bondage, and without calcium ion this binding cannot happen strongly and adequately. So now what happened that in case of metformin, suppose the patient has already taken the metformin drug, so the metformin ultimately reaches through the circulation into the enterocyte. So here you can see the metformin is become protonated within the enterocyte. So the protonated metformin is positively charged. So here you can see some positive charge inner side of the enterocyte. Remember, this is the enterocyte. This is the enterocyte. Okay, so here you can see some positive charge. This is the positive charge. This positive charge actually is protonated metformin. So that means you can understand that metformin produces positive charges inside the enterocyte. Okay, that's why the calcium ion which is located outside of the enterocyte, here the calcium ion, so the calcium ion cannot bind appropriately with this location due to these forces, these electric forces of metformin. Okay, so as the calcium can bind with the Cubeline receptor, so it cannot facilitate the bondage between intrinsic factor and vitamin B12 complex and Cubeline receptor. That's why the vitamin B12 intrinsic factor complex cannot bind with this Cubeline receptor due to failure of the calcium ion bind with the Cubeline receptor. Okay, so by this mechanism, metformin can prevent your absorption of vitamin B12 in your terminal ileum. Okay, so this is really approved that if we take the metformin more than 1500 milligram per day and the duration of taking metformin is more prolonged, then there is evidence-based research that vitamin B12 level can be decreased in your blood. So I can show you the statistics. So here you can see the daily doses of metformin. When we increase the doses of metformin, the vitamin B12 level in your blood begins to fall. Okay, it begins to fall. Okay, so I have tried my best to explain the matter briefly and the easiest way. So thank you everyone. If you like my lectures, then please like, share and subscribe my channel and keep me in your prayer. Allah Hafiz. Assalamu alaikum.